Hi guys, this is gsn.com and I'm here with the review of the Xiaomi Mi Mix 2S. We're dealing here with a very special phone, one that relies on a ceramic backside. It has the front camera placed here in the bottom right corner, and it was launched in the spring of 2018. I know it's late for the review, but hey, better late than never. Now we're dealing here with a narrow bezel phone that looks pretty premium, and the price has dropped considerably from the debut time frame. It's a Snapdragon 845 device, should be priced at around $345 right now on GearBest, and maybe you can find it even lower. So dual back camera, flagship specs, let's see what the device is all about. And just as a quick reminder, we've already reviewed the Xiaomi Mi Mix 3, and this is the 2S. Now design wise, it's clearly a premium affair. Glass at the front, reasonably flat, I would say, compared to the curved edge phones out there. Then we have a metal frame, and then we have the ceramic back, sort of a trademark for the Mi Mix series. It draws more fingerprints and more grease and more length compared to a glass back for sure. It's mirror-like, so you can see your reflection in it, and it's available in black or white. Measures 8.1mm in thickness and weighs 189 grams. I've been hearing people complaining about grip. To be honest, grip was not a problem for me. I'm gripping the phone okay, so there is that. Okay grip, okay build, pretty nice comfort, even if you're going to use the handset with a single hand. And by the way, you're getting a bundled case, so keep that in mind in case you want improved grip. Now, as far as the screen is concerned, this one is a 5.99 incher, 18:9 aspect, Full HD Plus resolution, and also HDR support. And by the way, the predecessor, the Mi Mix 2, also had a similar package, and we're dealing here with an IPS LCD panel. Now, in order to put this to the test, I'm going to have to use the MX Player application and check out our typical test video. As you can see, a very immersive experience on account of the narrow bezels. Not very vivid colors. In spite of what you're seeing here, I expected even more vivacity. I gotten used to the OLED panels, pretty okay brightness, decent contrast even in the sun, and wide view angles. At times the screen feels a bit gray or washed out. It may be the colors at the interface, but my feeling is that it's always a bit gray and washed out. But hey, it's immersive, so you should always remember that aspect. Okay, so now it's time to see how the pixels look like under the microscope, the pixels of the screen. This is the arrangement, RGB stripes. We also did a brightness test, and let's see what we achieved there. So we went as high as 489 lux units, which is quite good. It's better than the LG G7 and the Huawei Mate 20 Pro, the equal of the Galaxy A9 2018. It scores below the Sony Xperia XZ3 and the iPhone 7, also below the Nokia 8. Now we also have a bunch of settings for the screen, and there are the following. There is the brightness level, there is the reading mode, there's contrast and colors with a palette, automatic, increased or standard contrast depending on what your pick is, text size, and that's about it. No notch, no complications, nothing. It's time to talk about the CPU. So the CPU is a Qualcomm Snapdragon 845, the 2018 flagship CPU, accompanied by 6 or 8 GB of RAM, 64 or 128 GB of storage. There is even a 256 GB version, and there is no microSD card slot. Just for the sake of it, we have the 6 GB RAM, 64 GB storage version. And I have to say, I didn't experience any trace of lag and any sort of problem whatsoever. Everything was pretty fluid. Even in games like Free Fire, PUBG, Asphalt 9, I'm sure it can easily run Fortnite as well, but I'm going to limit myself to good old Riptide GP Renegade. Okay, so here we go, picking a quick race. I played this game 1,000 times, and I'm loving the frame rate and how good it looks on this immersive screen. Okay, so benchmarks wise, I can already tell you something, that in Antutu 6, by the way, nice way of showing the menu here for the volume, something I haven't seen in other parts. So in Antutu 6 we beat the Asus ROG phone, so that's no small feat. We beat the gaming phone, the ROG, and the Xperia XZ3 and Galaxy S9 Plus. And that's Antutu 6. Okay, we're done with the gaming. We also have a boosting feature for games. Take that into account. Even though we beat the ROG phone, Xperia XZ3 and Galaxy S9 Plus in Antutu 6, we scored actually below the OnePlus. We scored below the OnePlus 60 and the iPhone 10. Now let's see the other results for the benchmarks we took, because we took quite a few. So we talked about Antutu 6. I guess it's time to go and try and find Antutu 7. This is 6 and 7 should have a bluer background. Here we go. Antutu 7 shows a pretty impressive result, 292k points. This means we're beating the OnePlus 6, we're beating the Galaxy Note 9, Snapdragon 845, Xperia XZ3. We scored below the OnePlus 60 and Asus ROG phone. There's also the famous Geekbench, and here we go. Multi-core score expected a bit more. I remember that the iPhone 8 had 10k points. Here we beat the Huawei P20 Pro, Galaxy Note 8, but score below the Xperia XZ3, LG G7 and the Xperia XZ2, so could have been a bit better. We also did a bunch of graphical tests. I'm talking about slingshot and all that. And let's see, we went above it. Perhaps lots of screenshots here, folks. So you have to be patient with the navigation. Okay, so slingshot, I promised you slingshot, and in this one we beat the Huawei Mate 20 Pro, if you can believe it, Xperia XZ3 and the LG G7. Scored below the Xperia XZ2, OnePlus 6 and the Zenfone 5Z. Basically, it can fit between the OnePlus 6 and OnePlus 60, close to the Galaxy Note 9 or above it in benchmarks. We also did a bunch of temperature tests. We never feared that. And we achieved 33.1 degrees Celsius in Riptide, the game you saw before, and also 36.7 degrees Celsius in the benchmark GFX bench. So no trace of overheating, and we also have a heat map or two of the phone. These are taken using the special FLIR thermal camera thermal sensor of the Cat S61 rugged phone. You can see some pretty nice heat dissipation and only a small patch in the center where the phone gets a bit hotter. Okay, now let's talk battery. So the battery here is a 3400 mAh unit, and keep in mind that the predecessor Mi Mix 2 also had a similar capacity. This one has wireless charging, QI 7.5 watt, quick charge 3.0, and lithium polymer is the way to go here. Now as far as the actual battery performance goes, we have a bunch of screenshots that will reveal everything to you, and let's go ahead and try and find them. So we have here a bunch of options and settings, did a bunch of tests, so let's go and find out how we did in the battery department. Okay, this is the battery usage, and this is how we'll be using the phone. So when it comes to HD video playback in a loop, we were able to achieve 8 hours and 37 minutes of continuous HD playback. That's pretty underwhelming, expected more. Most phones nowadays go past 10 hours, 11 hours. This one is basically placed on the 179th spot from all the phones we ever tested. It beats Huawei Mate 10 Lite and LG Q7, but stays below the HTC 10 and Xiaomi Mi A1 and the Huawei Honor 10, so it's certainly not a compliment. When it comes to continuous usage, there's PC Mark, and the result here is 7 hours 57 minutes. Also underwhelming, but it actually means you can play around 8 hours of games, which is not exactly bad. Still placed on the 98th spot, beats HTC U11, OnePlus 6, Huawei Mate 10 Pro, stays below the Motorola One and Huawei Mate 20 Pro, also the Nokia 8 Sirocco. Probably the best news about the battery is the charging. It's 1 hour and 39 minutes. It's just okay, not exactly record breaking, just okay. And another good piece of news is that after 30 minutes you're at 55%, 30 minutes of charging, and after 1 hour you're at 90%, so there's that. Battery options include the usual optimization, scanning, and some smart scenes. So when it comes to acoustics, guess what? We're dealing with a dual setup, stereo speakers. Speaker here at the bottom, speaker here at the top. They complement each other, well, more or less. Now, in order to enjoy the experience, we have these tunes, so here we go. Okay, so as you saw before, if you cover the bottom speaker, the experience will suffer, but if you cover the top one, you can barely notice it. Good thing is that in landscape mode, you will not be covering this speaker too often. Options and settings here include, let's see, headphone and audio effects. We got headphone remote button, assign buttons, equalizer, Mi sound enhancer, headphone types. So basically most of the options are triggered when you have headphones attached. So the experience goes like this. I feel that the top speaker is too weak compared to the bottom speaker. The volume is only decent, not groundbreaking. There's a bit of vibration of the case and not much bass, so expected a bit more. At least they're stereo, well, almost. Okay, so we also did a bunch of decibel tests. Let's see how those panned out. We have a special tool that shows us the decibels. And here it's 77.2 decibels at the top, which is rather weak. That's the top speaker, but the bottom speaker behaved better, 82.8 decibels, and with this result we're able to beat Sony Xperia XZ2 and the iPhone XS Max, scoring below the OnePlus 6 and the Motorola One. This is an acoustic sample, but when we turned on the games, the result got as high as 95 decibels, which is better than the Sony Xperia XZ3 and the Motorola Moto G6, but scores below the Xiaomi Mi A2 and the Cat S61. And just in case you're wondering, no audio jack at the bottom and definitely no audio jack at the top side, so there's that. So mixed acoustics, I would say, and it's time to go further to the camera setup. So at the back side we have a combo of 12 megapixel cameras. So one of them is a 12 megapixel wide angle shooter with 4-axis stabilization, f1.8 aperture, and also dual pixel autofocus, and the other one is a 12 megapixel telephoto camera with f2.4 aperture. There's the LED flash here, there's some AI action going on, and it can catch 206 scenarios and do 4K in 30 frames per second. Now, at the front we have a meager 5 megapixel camera in this corner here. It's only 5 megapixels. There's AI bokeh, and apparently this phone scored 101 points in the EXO mark, which is quite high. We also have optical zoom, in case you're wondering why the zoom is so cool. The camera options are typical. We got AI, HDR, Google Lens, Beautify, Group Selfie, Contrast, Manual, Panorama, Night, Portrait, but let's leave that behind and go to the camera department where there are a lot of shots to analyze. Okay, so here we go into the gallery. One of the things I have to mention here is that it was a very dark and cloudy day, so there are circumstances for the missed shots. And another thing I noticed that the zoom is excellent. No wonder it's optical zoom we're dealing with here. The details stayed quite good even after 2 or 3x, and we could actually apply HDR because some of the shots were too dark. And here there's no trace of the sun, but at some point you can actually see the sun a bit thanks to the fact that we used a slight bit of HDR. So the first selfies were underwhelming because I couldn't use the camera properly. It's placed here, so you don't know if you're going to hold the phone like this or like this or like this, so it's very weird. You actually end up holding the phone like this in reverse to take proper selfies, and that feels a bit weird. Now back to where we left off. Once again, the first selfies aren't much, not very impressed by them. The background is actually overexposed. I'm going to skip them because the later selfies are actually better. So we go back to the regular shots. Yes, the pictures are dark, but it was a very cloudy day. I'm happy with the clarity and also with the details. Nice close-ups and nice HDR lighting up all the contrast in the tree. Colors were okay, pretty much spot on colors, except for the reds, which sometimes felt a bit too vivid. Once again, the zoom kicking some behind. This is the regular distance, and this is what happens when you zoom in with mighty impressive results. So far I would say that the zoom is the star here, and when we took some bokeh and close-ups in the shade, not very impressive, but then later on things got a bit better. Okay, so let's skip ahead a bit. We have some landscape shots. We're doing some zooming in. I would say decent details, but not the most impressive in the world. Several landscape shots, a pretty generous panorama, a resolution that's quite big, 15,120 over 3840 pixels. And here are more shots, and check this out. We actually have some excellent bokehs. This would easily be displayed in the dictionary next to the definition of bokeh. They're that good. So this is a perfect level of blur that you see in the background and highlight in the foreground, and not one missed millimeter from this bokeh shot, so kudos for that. So far, zoom, clarity are spot on, and several more shots, quite nice bokeh. And I have a feeling these are actually aperture shots which you can set up after the shot. Now finally, these are the better selfies. Not hugely convinced by the background. It has a medium level of blur, so you can see what's happening in the background clearer than on other phones, but for a 5 megapixel camera, it's actually pretty solid. At first I wasn't a believer, but then with all taken into account, even the uncomfortable position, I would say these selfies are actually okay. Talking about the skin texture, the hair texture, even what's behind me. And we have several more shots with the stars of the gallery definitely being these close-ups of this piece of a toy, of a car, this car lamp, huge amount of details. One of the best close-ups I've taken in all the year 2018. Excellent reflections, lighting and all that. So overall, it feels like a pretty solid phone. It can fight at the same level as a flagship when it comes to the close-ups, maybe some bokeh and even some of the selfies, but overall it feels more like a high mid-ranger. Basically could fight the LG G7 with less accurate colors, and it's exactly like the Galaxy A9 2018, only with better zoom and even better bokeh. So that's something to remember here. And it's below the Xiaomi Mi Mix 3 that we tested recently. The nighttime shots were a bit weird. They were actually good, but there was something off about them. So at nighttime you have the yellow lights. That's the street lighting at night. It's yellow, there's nothing to do about it. But here it's a strange yellow. It's a mustard yellow. It's an egg yolk yellow. If you've seen an egg yolk or the mustard, you know what I mean. It's a weird hue of yellow. It's not your typical one. The street halos are, I would say, decent. Clarity is okay. Brightness was also spot on. Some of the shots are too warm, too red, too orange, but in general the yellow was weird, mustardy and yolky. Some people may like it, but not a big fan of it. This is the flash. Pretty well calibrated, I would say. Some more orange and red shots. In the end, feels more like a high mid-range affair. Not a memorable shot, except for the fact that the yellow hue was deformed a bit. So there's that. I'm going to always remember the zoom of the phone, some bokehs and some selfies, and that's about it. Now let's talk about the video capture. Okay, so here we are. It's a bit of a surprise, this one, because the video capture was actually pretty solid. So it's all full HD, MP4, 30 frames per second and 20 mega per second, with the exception of the 4K captures, because we also did those. So let's take them one by one. Okay, so first things first, pretty decent microphone. It was a gray day, lots of clouds, not the best colors in the world, but still decently calibrated. Okay, clarity in my book. And when it comes to moving objects, we did pretty nicely in focusing, in clarity. There was no problem with panning, there was no motion blur, so there's that. Okay, so next up we have this video, which is a bit clearer and more colorful. Nice exposure change, nice focus all around, and pretty decent stabilization, even in the first captures. I feel that in the 4K videos, the reds were a bit too red for my taste, and the blues were too highlighted. Okay, and then suddenly, I noticed that the stabilization is actually quite good. At times, it even feels as solid as the one delivered by the Sony Xperia, which is no small feat. The only drawback of the filming when walking around is the slight tweak of the exposure, the slight exposure change at the top. You cannot decide if it's bright or dark if you look closely at the clouds. Other than that, I'm pretty happy with what's happening when you're filming and walking. Okay, and believe it or not, even though we have a mere 5 megapixel camera here, turns out it's actually pretty decent, provided you can actually manage to orientate the phone properly and put the camera right in your face. Pretty nice clarity, both my face and the background, when I'm talking about clarity, it's actually stellar for 5 megapixels. Okay, I've seen phones do worse with 8 megapixels. Even more captures here. I know there is a slight grayish vibe, but it was a very cloudy day, and in the end I'm happy with basically everything here. Didn't expect it to be so good in the video. Even the zoom is nice. So to be honest, not bad. You can find a Sony Xperia XZ2, you can find maybe an HTC U12 Plus, an LG G7 ThinQ, and even the Galaxy S9, so not bad at all when filming. And that's daytime. Let's see the low light. Okay, so these are the low lights captures. Even these ones are actually pretty solid. Nice yellow hue, decent stabilization, some small flicker here and there, but nothing major. Fast focus, also great streetlight halos size-wise. In the distance you may see a bit of noise and grain. Check out those street lights, and check out the zoom, which is quite solid again. Some artifacts here and there, but nothing truly major, so color me impressed. Color me truly impressed by the quality of the video capture here. Okay, we're done with that, and I guess it's time to go to the web browser. You can actually pick, you can choose the one simply called browser, or you can use good old Chrome, and let's access gsn1.com, see what happens. Here we go. And if you're doing some input on the keyboard, it's going to be one that's pretty close to the stock one, and it also has swipe in the mix. Now on the connectivity front, things are pretty straightforward. There's an USB Type-C 2.0 port at the bottom. There's no audio jack here. We have dual nano SIM card slots. We have NFC. We also have VoLTE 4G Plus on both SIMs from what I understood, and there's Wi-Fi A, B, G, and AC. There's Wi-Fi Direct. There's also Wi-Fi 2x2 MIMO, Wi-Fi display, Bluetooth 5.0, the usual options, and also GPS, Galileo, GLONASS, and Beidou to keep you properly localized on the globe. There's call recording, and speaking of calls, the calls were pretty loud and clear in my view, but earpiece is a bit smallish here. You can barely see it. It's a very small slit, and that's that. Okay, now as usual, we have a bunch of tests. I'm talking about the speed test thingy. We use those to measure the speed of the network, and things are pretty hot. On Wi-Fi we got to 397 megapsecond downloads, and also we got to 25.3 megapsecond uploads, so that's nice. And on 4G we got up to, let's see here, we got up to 67.7 megapsecond downloads. I've seen better, and also 50 megapsecond uploads, so that's that. Very nice Wi-Fi. 4G could be better. Now let's talk about the software. Okay, so software-wise, the device has been updated. It debuted with Oreo and MIUI 9.5, and we're actually running on Android Pie here with MIUI 10.2, so that's nice to see. You can easily detect if it's MIUI 10. It's got this brightness bar here, which is a bit of a squircle, you know, that square with curved corners. Okay, so we start off with the aggregator, the leftmost part. The leftmost home screen aggregates stuff like shortcuts, security, notes, calendar events, and you can actually customize them, so that's nice to see. I've seen lots of Android phones with this approach. Here we have the multitasking. Got a bunch of options at the top: cleaner, security scan, deep clean, and also manage apps. These are the apps that were running. These are considered the recent apps, and you should actually be able to keep one pressed to do their split screen thingy. And there's actually a lot of support for split screen, maybe more than I've seen on other phones with this native feature. And you can also trigger it from here. You can press split screen and drag apps up there or something like it. Let's try again. Okay, so split screen, press and hold an app, drag it there, you get the gist of it. So that's the multitasking in a nutshell. Vertical cards in a smaller version, actually not a bad idea. Okay, so we also have dual apps here. And if you're wondering what happens if you keep the home screen pressed, you get your wallpapers, widgets, and settings. Widgets are these ones. If you've seen MIUI over the past, I don't know, 3 or 4 years, you know what to expect. Ultra minimalism. They're stuck from the skeuomorphic iOS 7 and they keep repeating it, but also getting it better. Transition effects, filling empty cells, layout, and that's about it as far as the home screen is concerned. Swipe down, you'll be treated to the minimalistic, and I would say Samsung Galaxy S and Galaxy Note inspired notification and quick settings area. And you can actually tweak some stuff here. You got the do not disturb, sync, lock screen, screenshot, reading mode, and more, which you can add according to your needs. Okay, so then we go to the settings where there's a lot of stuff to do. I'm going to try and keep it short. Okay, so here we have full screen options, so you can actually benefit from the entire screen space. Let's see what else. We have second space. We also have something called Quick Ball, which is a floating widget. We have here the About phone, where you can see the software version is based on Android 9. System updater, security status, dual SIM, connectivity, display wallpaper, themes, lock screen and password. Here you can add a fingerprint, and by the way, this fingerprint scanner is one of the fastest on the market. You just tap it once and you've done the unlocking. Okay, advanced settings and smart cover mode are also here. Notification and status bar, full screen display, as I was saying before. You can also get rid of these buttons here and replace them with gestures, which you can actually learn with a tutorial. Okay, learn, swipe from the bottom quickly, that's your home. Okay, swipe from the bottom and pause, that's your recents. Okay, and swipe right from the edge, That's how you go back. Swipe left, and you can also go back like that. So that's how you replace your buttons, but I'm going to be keeping them. Okay, there's also second space, additional settings, there's an enterprise mode, quick bold, the floating widget, button and gesture shortcuts, notification light, which is here down somewhere in the chin, one-handed mode, and that's about it. When it comes to the pre-installed apps, and by the way, there's no app drawer, all the apps are right on the home screens. I counted 32 apps, not huge, but also not very little. We also have some useful ones like security. It has a cleaner, security scan, data usage, boost speed, app lock, and actually a few more, WhatsApp cleaner and Facebook cleaner, which are useful on their own, but I doubt they can actually clean everything properly because it's hard. And then we have the typical native Google apps. Got a bunch of tools like a recorder and a useful screen recorder for the gamers. Okay, we have a note-taking app, of course, a cleaner, file manager, and that's about it. Okay, I guess it's time for the verdict. This phone is definitely not a youngster. It was launched in spring of 2018, but it's still pretty sexy with its ceramic back and its accents around the camera and its high power for games. Now on the pro side, we got the elegance, the pretty okay screen brightness, the good performance overall, surprising video capture, I was actually blown away, nice bokeh and selfies, okay pictures overall, fast Wi-Fi, okay-ish interface, and fast fingerprint scanner. Those are the pros. Now if you want to go to the cons, where on the cons side it's a fingerprint magnet, the back side. The battery could have been better on both accounts, video playback and continuous usage. I would also say that the top speaker is rather underwhelming compared to the bottom one. The selfie camera is certainly uncomfortable. You don't know how to hold the phone properly. Happened to me a bunch of times. Low light pictures are pretty warm color wise, and that's about it. Those are all the cons. In the end, you're left here with an elegant filming phone. This is a phone you're going to take to a concert in order to film properly everything you want. You're going to do some bokeh, some gaming, and that's about it. It's pretty, it handles gaming, it can take a nifty video capture or two. So it's basically for the gamer and concert goer in you. The price has dropped a lot, it's below $400. I'm guessing it's even below $300 in some parts of the world. And except for the battery and maybe the selfie camera placement, I don't see any major drawback here. So I recommend you buy it if you really care about the ceramic back and you consider it sexy. Some people may not consider it sexy, but some people do. So in the end, ceramic and good filming, that's your choice. This has been it from gsrone.com. This has been the review and presentation of the Xiaomi Mi Mix 2S. Bye bye.